The temperature inside the cabin had dropped to a level the human body was never designed to tolerate for this long. And the man behind the wheel knew it. He could see his breath hanging in the dark interior of a 2005 Saab 9-2X station wagon. A vehicle engineered for European boulevards. Not for what was happening to it now, buried to its wheel wells in snow, on a road that, according to every official document filed with the state of Oregon, was not supposed to be passable in winter.
Keep breathing, honey. We'll be all right.
Mama, my belly hurts.
Just rest now, my love.
Behind him, his wife held their two daughters close, rationing body heat the same way she had been rationing the last of the baby food. It was day 6. The fuel gauge had been sitting on empty for 2 days. And James Kim, a man who had spent his entire career writing about the technology that was supposed to keep people safe, connected, and found, was about to make a decision based on a piece of paper that was wrong. This is a case file built entirely from search and rescue logs, cell tower forensic data, and the survivor's own accounts, and it begins not with the wrong turn, but with the 18 care packages a desperate father dropped from a helicopter into a wilderness the size of a small country. Each one containing a note that said the same 4 words: "Hold on, help's coming." Rewind 8 days. November 25th, 2006, Portland, Oregon. James Kim was 35 years old. A CNET product reviewer with a reputation for testing gadgets most people hadn't heard of yet.
Welcome home.
Married to Katie, father to
So glad to
4-year-old
be
Penelope
here.
and 7-month-old
Mommy,
Sabine.
it's warm.
The family had spent Thanksgiving in Seattle and were now working their way down the coast toward Turtle Rock Resort near Gold Beach. A quiet stretch of Oregon coastline roughly 300 miles south. It should have been a straightforward drive. It was not going to be one. By the time they left a Denny's in Roseburg around 9 that evening, the rain that had followed them most of the day had thickened into something heavier, and the dark had set in completely. The plan was simple on paper. Take Oregon Route 42 west to the coast, then Highway 101 south to the resort. Somewhere in the dark, on the unlit stretch of Interstate 5, they missed the turnoff. This is the first failure point in the case, not a dramatic one. Just a small human error, the kind that happens to drivers every single day and almost never matters. Except
Estamos
tonight,
aqui.
it would. Instead of backtracking
isso
to
é
the
muito
highway
longe.
they knew,
Temos que
James
tentar.
and Katie made the choice that would
No.
define everything that
That way will
followed.
be blocked.
They
you
checked their
sure we
paper
shouldn't
map
try?
for an alternate
We have to
route.
follow this route.
And there
Trust
it
me.
was. A
No.
thin gray line
That way
snaking
will be
through the
blocked.
rogue River Siskiyou
Are you
National
sure we shouldn't
Forest,
try?
labeled
We
Bear
have to
Camp
follow
Road.
this route. Trust me.
The The map carried a small disclaimer. The kind printed in 8-point font that almost nobody reads twice. Not all roads may be suitable in all conditions. What the map did not say, because the map's publisher had no way of knowing in real time, was that Bear Camp Road was a logging route. It received no winter maintenance, no plowing, no emergency patrols. In the warm months, it was a scenic backcountry cut-through. In the cold months, it became something closer to a track disguised as a shortcut. They turned onto it anyway. For the first several miles, nothing seemed wrong. Then the rain became sleet. The sleet became snow. And the temperature, which had been hovering just above freezing, began falling fast enough that the windshield wipers started losing the fight. Headlights cut maybe 30 feet into a wall of falling white, and somewhere out there in that wall, unseen, were 3 separate warning signs. Bright yellow, official, unambiguous, reading Bear Camp Road may be blocked by snowdrifts. The family drove past all 3, not out of recklessness, out of momentum. Once you're 45 minutes into a single-lane forest road in a blizzard, in the dark, with 2 small children in the back seat, turning around does not feel like the safer option. It feels like surrender. So they kept going, telling themselves the next bend would reveal a motel, a gas station, a sign of civilization. It never did. Somewhere past the 2-hour mark, deep in terrain that does not appear with any real accuracy on consumer GPS systems even today, the road split. To the left, a route that looked narrower, steeper, less inviting. To the right, a wider road, better paved, and, critically, a large metal gate standing wide open.
Fork ahead.
In the logic of a
Right
man
side.
trying to read meaning into a landscape that offers none, an open gate looks like permission. It looks like the way through. What James and Katie did not know, because the markings confirming it were buried under fresh snowfall, was that the gate should have been locked for the winter season. It had been left open, against protocol, to give hunters late-season access to the area. The road on the right was not a route to the coast. It was a dead end, deep in the rogue wilderness, with no warning sign visible to tell them so. They took the right fork. The road kept climbing. It kept narrowing. The Saab, a vehicle never designed for sustained snow travel, fishtailed and crawled along a track that was now barely wider than the car itself. Walled in on both sides by old-growth forest pressing close enough to scrape the mirrors, there was no shoulder, no turnaround point. Just a single corridor of compacted snow with a forest dropping away into darkness on either side. Katie picked up her phone to call for help and watched the signal bars do nothing at all. Dead zone. Complete digital silence in a country where most people have never spent more than a few hours outside of cell coverage in their entire lives. In the back seat, the children were crying. In the front, two adults were beginning to understand, in real time, that they had driven themselves somewhere that did not officially exist on any winter-accessible map. Around 2 in the morning, the road simply refused to give any more ground. James shifted into reverse and tried to back the Saab out the way they'd come. Door cracked open so he could watch the wheel track in the snow. He worked at it for hours. The car would not move more than a few feet before the tires lost traction entirely, spinning uselessly against packed ice. By the time the sun rose on Saturday, November 26th, the family was parked in the middle of the road wilderness, the gas gauge dropping toward empty, snow falling heavily enough to bury the car's lower half within hours, and not one functioning signal source connecting them to the outside world. What followed was 9 days that would later become a textbook case study, quietly referenced. Even now, the way our channel referenced the pressure failure cascade in the deep sea trap incident, and what extreme cold actually does to a family's physiology and psychology when rescue is not guaranteed. The supplies in the car were almost laughably minimal for what was coming. A box of crackers, 2 small jars of baby food, a handful of snacks picked up along the road trip. Katie began rationing immediately, splitting portions for Penelope and breastfeeding Sabine to stretch what little
56.
caloric reserve remained. They
Don't
ran
worry,
the
I
engine
will.
in 15-minute bursts to conserve fuel while still generating enough warmth to keep frostbite at bay. At night, the darkness around the car was not empty. Headlights occasionally caught movement in the tree line, bears drawn by the scent of food. Circling close enough that James would lean on the horn through the small hours just to keep them at a distance. This was not abstract wilderness danger. This was active, immediate animal proximity. 4 feet from 2 sleeping children, every single night for the better part of a week. By day 4, the fuel ran out entirely. The engine, their only consistent heat source, went silent for good. James began burning what he could find, old magazines from the car. Scraps of dry wood gathered in brief windows between blizzards, and eventually, on day 6, all for tires off the Saab itself. Rubber burns hot and fast, and for a short while the family had real warmth again, it did not last. By that afternoon, the fire was out, and James and Katie both understood, without needing to say it aloud, that they had crossed into the part of the ordeal where waiting was no longer a viable strategy. What they did not know, could not know, was that 200 miles away, the largest search and rescue operation in Oregon's history was already underway. When James failed to show up at CNET, colleagues filed a missing persons report. Investigators traced a Denny's credit card charge to Roseburg, narrowing the search corridor. State Police, the Oregon National Guard, more than 80 civilian volunteers, and multiple helicopters, 3 of them privately chartered by James's own father. Spencer Kim began combing.
We have
A
to move
wilderness
now.
area so vast
Focus
that
on the
finding
ridge
a
line, that's
single
where we'll
silver
find her.
station wagon
Go.
in it was statistically closer to impossible than difficult. Spencer Kim had 18 separate care packages dropped by air along the most probable search corridors. Each one stocked with food, warm clothing, and a handwritten note urging his son to hold on. Not one of them landed anywhere near the actual car. On the morning of December 2nd, day 7, James and Katie made the decision that would split this case into 2 outcomes. The crackers were gone. The baby food was gone. Penelope and Sabine had both gone quiet in the way that exhausted, malnourished children go quiet, a silence far more frightening to a parent than crying. Checking the paper map one more time, James calculated that the town of Gallus sat roughly 4 miles away. For miles, on foot, through deep snow, was something he believed he could survive. At 7:45 that morning, wearing tennis shoes, light clothing, and a jacket, carrying only a flashlight, 2 lighters, and his backpack, James told Katie he'd
We
be
need to
back
keep
by
going.
1 in the afternoon if
I
he
know.
didn't find anyone
Together.
first. The map was wrong. Gallus was not for miles away.
We need to keep
It was
going.
15.
I know.
He never
Together.
made the 1 o'clock deadline. He never made any deadline. days, Katie and the children remained alone in the car, watching a tree line that gave them nothing back. While 200 miles of search teams continued working a radius that still hadn't been narrowed to the right valley.
Tamam, girelim.
The break came not from official channels, but from two engineers working independently, who managed to extract a faint, days-old cell signal ping from James's phone. A single data point from November 26th, the very first night, and used it to mathematically collapse the search radius down toward Bear Camp Road. Even then, it took a volunteer pilot flying outside the official search grid on his own initiative to spot what no one else had, a flash of color in an endless field of white. He banked the helicopter lower and saw a woman standing beside a buried car, waving a bright umbrella over her head and stamped into the snow beside her in letters large enough to read from the air. Out of gas. SOS. Kati Kim and her two daughters were airlifted out alive on day
Over
9,
here!
suffering
her.
from
Get the
starvation
stretcher
and
ready.
mild frostbite, but
Heading your way now.
against every statistical likelihood,
Help!
alive.
Oh, thank God! We're here, we're here! We're here! We found you! Oh God, oh thank God! We're here! Oh thank God! Let's
The
get you
first
inside!
thing Katie asked rescuers, the moment she understood she was safe, was whether James had already been found in town. The look on the rescuers' faces told her everything before a single word was spoken. He hadn't made it to Gallus.
Has James
He
been
hadn't
found?
made it
Did he
anywhere
make
they
it to
knew
town?
of.
Ma'am,
The
we need to
search
get you to
for
safety
James
first.
Kim became,
Try to relax.
in its own right, one
He
of
left
the most
4 days ago.
forensically detailed missing person
was walking to
trails in
Gallus.
Oregon search and rescue history. Teams backtracked his footprints for 11 miles along the road before discovering something that still puzzles investigators studying the case today. At a certain point, James left the road entirely, descending through dense brush toward a steep ravine below, a deviation from any rational route to Gallus. Scattered along this new path, searchers began finding small, deliberate-looking markers. Scraps of his daughter's blue skirt, pieces of the Oregon road map torn and placed at intervals, small toys. The leading theory among investigators is that these were intentional trail markers, left by a man whose body was failing faster than his mind, in the hope that someone tracking him would know which direction he'd gone. At 12:03 p.m. on December 6th, 4 days after he walked away from the car. An air search team spotted a body lying face up in 2 feet of icy water in a stretch of Big Windy Creek, backpack still strapped to his shoulders. James Kim had walked an estimated 16 miles through wilderness terrain in tennis shoes before hypothermia and exhaustion finally took him. 2 days. Forensic analysis would later suggest after he left the vehicle. He was found just over 1 mile from Black Bar Lodge, a fully stocked backcountry shelter that, had he reached it, would almost certainly have saved his life. The case file closes on a detail that search coordinators still describe as the cruelest variable in the entire incident. The metal gate that misdirected the family onto the dead-end road that night should have been locked for the season under standard Forest Service protocol. It was not. A single unlocked gate, left open for hunters who were never identified, sent a family of 4 down a route that did not lead home, and that decision, made by someone they never met, on a night they will never forget, is the line investigators keep returning to when they ask the question this case never fully answers. How much of survival is preparation, and how much of it is simply which side of an open gate you happen to end up on? On February 18th, 2007, hundreds gathered at Golden Gate Park in San Francisco for a memorial service honoring James Kim, husband, father, and a man whose final 9 days were defined not by the mistake that started them, but by every choice he made afterward to try to bring his family home. By the end of that year, his friends and family had established the James Kim Technology Foundation, bringing the same technology he'd spent his career reviewing into San Francisco's public schools, a legacy built, deliberately, from the very tools that had failed to find him in time.